When's the last time you saw yourself represented on screen? Have you seen yourself represented? Growing up, I turned to YouTube. After all, the number one creator in the late 2000s was a Japanese American guy from Hawaii, Ryan Higa. I would also watch Wong Fu Productions, Kev Jumba, and Happy Slip. The first gay Asian American I remember was The Luan Legacy.
Pat, 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 pat. Pow! That would have been that boy's fate had he been talking to me, had he slapped me like that. You would not have been able to put off with an Asian mama. She would have put the bam in bamboo.
While I adored and sometimes envied Luan's ability to be himself, the first time I really felt represented was watching our next guest, Andrew On. In the fall semester of my senior year of college, I saw the Kickstarter for a young, gay Korean American director, one that was doing the work and now turning to his community for the next step of his journey, to make his first feature. I remember donating $10 at the time, hoping that my small contribution would help. 592 backers and almost $63,000 later, Spawn Night was officially funded. Since then, Andrew has gone on to premiere Spawn Night at Sundance, directed his second feature, Driveways, directed television episodes for Netflix, CBS, and Sundance Now, and is also one of my mentors. On top of all of his accomplishments, he is genuinely one of the kindest and most giving people I've ever met. This is the Queer Cinema Show. Hello, Andrew. Welcome to the Queer Cinema Show.
Hi, Trent.
I'm curious for you, kind of going back, and graduating from art school, and even after making your first feature, Spawn Night, there's no guarantee of income just coming from making a film. And what was your mindset when you first left college, of how you were going to have a career as a creative independent?
Yeah, it's a really difficult, field to go into, because it's not necessarily a kind of industry where you work your way up per se. It's not like you apply to an entry level position and then you eventually become a director. There are people that do that, and I think that that's a very valid path, but it's not actually a super common path. So when I thought about film school and becoming a filmmaker, I actually hadn't really had much of an idea of like a career. Instead I was just more excited about the art form and the passion for it. I didn't know how I was going to make money. I didn't know how I was going to have a sustainable career. So I went into it a little bit, foolhardy. I had no real kind of solid strategic plan. But I did know that I loved filmmaking and I loved storytelling, and that it was something that captured my attention. And so I went to CalArts for grad school in film. And what I loved about that experience was that it was a very like artist focused opportunity. I wasn't being told about like how to find a job in the industry. It was really about the craft. It was really about a personal artistic point of view. And there will never be another time in my life where I'll have that, that kind of bubble, that protection to really just develop myself as an artist. And so I really loved it. Did I rack up a lot of student loans? Like, yes. And am I paying them off now? Kind of. And will I eventually pay them off? Maybe. But it was this thing where I think I needed that kind of space and time to really kind of build a foundation. And then after that, it was thinking about, I have this artistic foundation. How do I build a career from there. And so the first big step for me was to find a community. And I think a lot of a lot of career advice goes back to like networking, which I find kind of a dirty word because it feels so um I don't know, just like so cold. Where for me, it was really just about meeting people that were passionate about the same things I, was passionate about, and wanted to create work, that I wanted to create. And so, you know, going to film festivals, going to Outfest, going to Los Angeles Asian Pacific Film Festival, Frameline, like, these were places for me to just start building those connections and feeling that sense of community. It was a really slow and steady process of building that community, seeing what other people were doing, finding opportunities for jobs through these organizations, through these film festivals. And I had kind of put all this kind of pressure on making my first feature, making Spa Night.
Mhm.
And so I figured, like, once I make Spa Night, like, I'll become like a grown-up, filmmaker. I'll be a professional. And during that whole experience of trying to make Spa Night, the 4.5 years that it took between graduating from film school and making the movie, I was working a day job, like something unrelated to film, that was really that was enough to pay the bills, enough to keep me going, but gave me the flexibility to keep working on Spa Night. Um, and then I made Spa Night, and then I premiered at Sundance, and I was so excited. And I was like, I've made it, right? And then I realized, like, oh no, like I I haven't become like the butterfly, filmmaker. I wasn't like a grown-up filmmaker. If anything, I had kind of just been born. Like I was just like a caterpillar. And now I'm kind of going through what I feel like is filmmaker puberty, like I think I'm growing and developing as a filmmaker in a way that you know i I didn't expect. But this is now this new phase of my career where I am thinking about longevity, where I'm not just thinking about one project ahead of me. I'm thinking about, what do I want the rest of my my career to look like, in film and television. And so it's a really step by step process, and the journey seems to feel like it gets longer and longer, but I think that uh, it gets longer because I've achieved certain things, right? Like I can, I think at first you're so focused on just what's right in front of you. And then as soon as you feel like um, you've laid a bit of a path, then you can dream more, then you can dream bigger. And so that for me has been kind of my experience so far. And it's a little bit like um, when you don't know what's out there, the most you can do is just focus on like what's immediately in front of you. Um, and I think that that's really important advice, for young filmmakers, right? Like, yes, like you're going to have to think about these big questions, but you don't have to think about them right now, right? Like, make the work, like do what you're excited by, do what you're able to do at this time, and then those bigger questions will come. And so for me, uh I think back on that experience, and I'm just like, wow, like I had no idea, but in some ways I'm glad I didn't, because because then I could really focus on just like making the best film I could. So yeah, I feel like my path has really um, grown as I've grown.
Yeah, yeah. Would you say that you are a cocoon right now, or turning into that butterfly at this point?
I don't know. Well, this is another thing to think about is I had kind of I had told many people while I was making Sponite that I was like kind of putting my life on hold, right? Like I was like, oh, um like I shouldn't date, like, oh, like I shouldn't like get my own place, like I shouldn't, I was making all these kind of excuses and placing them on, like, I just need to make my first feature and then I can like live the rest of my life. And I think having made a second feature and having, done television now, like I think every project kind of feels like you kind of put your life on hold. And so eventually I've had to come to the realization like, oh, I just need to kind of keep living life while I'm making these things. Um, and so I think it's kind of a constant journey, right? Like it's a constant growth. And I know that some filmmakers might not think about their careers that way, but for me, I would really love if my career always felt like growing, right? That I never necessarily reach the butterfly stage, that I'm always just, you know, learning and growing and experimenting and trying new things. That for me would be a really fun career. And so, this is a little cliche, but it's not, it's not the destination, it's the journey. And so for me, um, that feels right for me. I think that's how I stay excited and motivated about being a writer director. If I felt like I ever made the perfect film and I was at the peak of this art form of my ability, I think I would be really sad and I would be bored and I wouldn't do it anymore. And so that drive to just like keep experimenting and keep exploring and keep improving, is what keeps me going and keeps me excited for, not just the immediate future, but for, the rest of my life as a filmmaker.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think back to the Korean American Roundtable you recently participated in, and there was a line that you said that actually really stuck out to me. In kind of talking about career, where you said, "I can't think that anything I do is a mistake."
I've kind of put together a philosophy for myself where it's like I can't think that anything that I do is a mistake, because ultimately I think it'll help me in my art making. It'll help me as a human being grow in some way. And even if it feels like a mistake at first, it might lead to something great, you know, in the future.
And that so much of the process is, whether it goes the way you want it to or not, like it's the growth through that adds to your experiences, rather than looking at it as success or failure. And so I thought that's really interesting, and I really appreciate that perspective.
I'm,
um
I'm I'm glad that you like that.
yeah.
It is an important kind of part of my worldview.
Yeah. Well, I think that a lot of young filmmakers, especially, can, myself included in this, can be so hard on themselves for any decision that we make of, oh, this film's not ready for the world. I'm not going to send it out. Or, this is not, quite the way I want it to be. I don't want anyone to read it, and kind of being our own worst enemy in our own mistakes, and not, allowing ourselves the room to fail and giving ourselves those opportunities to essentially make mistakes that will help us grow. When a lot of people look at directors, they see the after product, they see the film that's been made, and the Q&A that happens afterwards, or the glamour of walking down the red carpet with your cast and crew. I think something that a lot of people don't see is the work that directors do to make a film or product the way that it is. And I'm so curious about preparation. The night before a big set, the night before a big shoot, what does preparation look like for Andrew?
Preparing for a shoot as a director, is is very important because there's a certain amount of just having to really embody the story and the film, or the show that you're working on, so that you can react instinctually to things. And so you really have to kind of integrate what's been written on the page, and all these conversations that you've had with your collaborators, into a kind of like thought matrix that you can then use to make decisions, on the spot. And so for me, I reread the script, I reread the scenes that I'm going to be directing the next day. I create kind of a director's cheat sheet, where I, for each scene that I'm directing, I write down, what is the point of the scene? What's the scene that happens before this? What's the scene that happens right after this? Often because scenes in film and television are shot out of order. I write down, like, why is this scene engaging, entertaining, and then any notes that I have, that might be, an idea for an improv, or an alternative line, anything that I thought of that might help me direct that scene the next day. So it's really reminding myself, like, what is this story? What is this script about? Who are these characters? Doing all of that prep work, so that I can feel like I know what I'm doing, that I can be relaxed on set, so that when you are directing, you can really absorb everything that's happening in front of you, be perceptive, in a way that allows you to kind of harness all the talents of your cast and crew to make something even better than you could imagine. So it is a lot of kind of almost like redundant work, because by the point I've gotten to, the night before filming, a lot of these questions I've already answered, in various ways, but it's a good reminder to answer them again, for myself, right before. So that's kind of the immediate prep work, right, right before that day. And then, I'll do things like get, a lot of sleep, like eat well. There was a point where on Driveways, my second feature, for various reasons, like I would go to Wendy's every night after shoot to get a late night meal, and then scarf down a burger and fries. And I just didn't feel good. Like I just wasn't eating healthy, and and it really, I think it took a toll on just my physical being. And so, moving forward on other shoots that I've done, it's been really important for me to, eat as healthy as I can, so that I feel like I have energy, because again, I want to be on set, be perceptive, be engaged in this way that, as a director, it's really important that you see what's happening in front of you, and it's often really hard to do that. Sometimes you lose focus, and that can mean the difference between a scene that's really great and engaging, and a scene that's just so so.
I'm so curious about this because I've worked on a couple, short films, and in my very short career, and in that there's 1 or 2 day shoots where you go on set 12-hour a day, and you get ready for the next one. When you look at working on your first feature, second feature, working in television, you're looking at several weeks, of 5-day shoots, 12-hour days in a row, maybe longer, with a commute. You're now talking about a 16, 18-hour day. What do you do in, I besides the eating Wendy's, what do what do you do in that time to, stay sane, to keep on top of what's coming up the day ahead? Like, how do you look into that next day while also focusing on the day that you currently have? What does that look like?
Yeah, I mean, it's really important for me um, to uh, like have someone to talk to. Um, and so whether it's a friend or a partner, someone who isn't necessarily like on set with you, um, it's nice to be able to kind of debrief with them and kind of vent and say what you thought didn't go well, or you know or like rejoice and celebrate and be like, wow, like this went really well, now so excited. But I think it's really nice to have someone that you can kind of process the day with that isn't your cast or crew, so that for me is really helpful. My boyfriend has heard a lot about like filming, and I really appreciate, his listening to me, and providing that kind of emotional support. And then I think I think it's really it's also very important to like find um, other sources of kind of artistic expression. I find it really hard to like watch TV or movies while I'm directing something, because um, I think like when you're so in the middle of making, it's hard to watch a finished product, because you can either get kind of insecure because you see something that's so amazing and you're just like, oh, I just want that. Um, or, or it, what you see starts to influence, how you're working, and you might steer away from a vision of the film that, that you've established, that you've told other people, that your cast and crew understands. And so when you watch something else that might influence that, they might not be aware of it, and then it can get kind of a jumbled film or TV episode. So for me, I listen to a lot of music. I will watch like uh, for me, it's like I can watch like nonfiction, like I can watch documentaries. Um, so that's kind of what I'll do to just like unwind, or just like feel some sort of art in my life that isn't necessarily like film or TV. And I think that that's kind of as much as I can do in the few hours that you have, and then I'm just like, I'm going to take a hot shower and I'm going to go to sleep as soon as I can.
Yeah, yeah. Is there a top artist that rises to for your list of who you wind down to, or is it different based on the day?
It's kind of different, like I was listening to um like when I was making Driveways, I was listening to a lot of like Frank Ocean, and um, I was just filming a TV show, and I was listening to a lot of classical music. It kind of just is like wherever my inspiration, my interest takes me, I'll kind of go. Oh yeah, like this past TV show, I was listening to a lot of classical music and like Haim for whatever reason, like I just was like very different things, but yeah, I think it's kind of fun to be able to um, explore and experiment, and have like kind of something else going while you're also making this thing.
Looking at Driveways, and we're coming. This is filmed for context at the end of 2020. Will premiere in 2021. But coming to the end of 2020, you're on the top of many of the 25 best films list. You're seeing a lot of love from across the film community, as deserved. How does it feel?
Yeah, I love that people are um, kind of recognizing the talent that went into Driveways. I had such a passionate, dedicated cast and crew, I'm really happy for all of us that we're on these lists, and that we have like 100% on Rotten Tomatoes. Like that's very fun and great. Um, uh, it feels very like validating in many ways that we all put time and energy into something that is really special. And I'm so glad that more and more people are finding the film and discovering it, and getting a chance to watch it, especially since it was one of the last films that one of our actors, Brian Dennehy, worked on. He passed away a couple of months ago, and so for me, I think that that's really special, that that this film could be a way to you know uh, pay respects to him and to his career. Brian was just so talented and so generous, as an actor, and also as a human being. Um, you know, I know for myself that as cool as all the accolades and mentions are, that at the end of the day, that's not why I'm a filmmaker. I think if I needed those things, I would have a really unhealthy relationship to my work. For me, like uh, I'm thankful for those things, but I always have to remind myself, like, why do I want to keep doing this? Why do I want to make the next film? And it's always because of the passion for storytelling, the desire to tell more human stories, to really express a point of view of the world that other people might not know about. And so for me, it's a little bit of a balance to make sure that, like, all the notices, like, don't go to my head and then cloud why I'm doing this. So I read them. I'm very thankful for them, and then I try not to look at them again.
Yeah. Do you read the bad reviews as well?
Of course, of
Yeah.
course. I think, and here's the truth of it. Like, we're going to have bad reviews, right? Like, you're going to have people that don't like your film, and I think that that's okay. For me, uh, the best films are the films that, like, will have fervent fans, and then will have, like, big detractors, right? Like, if everybody, like, kind of equally liked something, I would be kind of disappointed. And so I really I think it's nice to know, like, well, okay, this person didn't like it, why did they not like it? And then for me to just acknowledge, like, well, it just wasn't for them, and that's totally fine.
Talking a little bit more about Driveways, I unlike Spawn Night, it's not a project that you both wrote and directed. Did you enjoy working with words that weren't something that you penned? And if so, what is something that you got out of that process in directing someone else's words and someone else's writing?
I think as a director, uh, whether or not you wrote the script, you have to look at your script kind of objectively. So even when I was directing my own writing with Spawnite, you kind of have to take off your writer's hat and put on your director's hat when you're, on set. And so that objectivity is something that can be a little bit easier to find when you're directing someone else's writing. And so as a director, it's a slightly different experience. You have a little bit more objectivity. But at the same time, you may not be as familiar with it, right? So that's your job as a director, is to really familiarize yourself with that story, with that screenplay. I really loved directing, Driveways. The script that Hannah Boss and Paul Thurene wrote felt so human and nuanced, and for me that was such a joy to kind of work with. Um, uh, it is like a really important skill to learn, I think. And for me, I got to direct things, that I would never have written myself. Small spoiler, but like at the end of Driveways, there's a monologue that one of the characters gives, and I never would have written that monologue because I would have told myself it's too long. The challenge of writing an engaging monologue would be too difficult, and so I probably would have chickened out and never wrote it. But because Hannah and Paul did, I had the joy of getting to direct it, and so I think that really it's a real honor. You get to bring to life someone else's words, they've done some of the hard work for you. I'll always go back to writing and directing. I think that's something I'm really interested in. I've been writing a lot this year, but I think it would be silly of me to never direct again something that I haven't written, because I learned so much from the process, and there's so many talented writers out there. I don't think it makes sense for me to cut that off as a possibility for future projects.
We have come to the point of the show, which is my favorite part, which is our creator spotlight. This is a chance to spotlight up to 2 LGBTQ creatives who are working in film and media. And Andrew, the floor is yours.
Cool. Yeah. Uh, I have met a lot of filmmakers at festivals that I've gotten to work with. I have gotten the honor to work with a filmmaker, Nikki Ong, who's queer, Asian American, directed and co-wrote a short film called Were You Gay in High School that I had the opportunity to help produce. And I think Nikki is super, super talented. Her co-writer, Karen Du, is super talented and also was the cinematographer on the project. I'm excited for Nikki's career. I know that she's developing pilots and features, and I think she just has a really wonderful point of view. The other person, kind of off the top of my head, that I think is one to watch is Elegance Bratton, who directed Peer Kids and co-directed the film Buck with Jovan James. And I had the opportunity to watch Buck on, I think, on Frameline, their virtual festival, and it's just such a beautifully made film. And then Elegance's film Peer Kids, I just think it was such a labor of love, filming for so many years. And so, I'm really excited to see what Elegance does next. But yeah, there's so many talented filmmakers, and just to pick 2 is tricky. So I, people can follow me on Twitter, and I'll continue to shout out people that I think are making great work and are getting the opportunity to play at festivals and make their next films.
Absolutely. There's a lot of great talent out there, and we're always discovering more. And Nikki and Elegance are great picks. So thank you so much. And that wraps up today's interview. And thank you so much for being on the show, Andrew.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Trent.